By the time dinner was served, I already knew something was off. The house smelled like rosemary, seared beef, and the citrus polish Lily used when she wanted everything to look expensive. Soft jazz drifted through the speakers in the ceiling. The lights in the dining room were dimmed low enough to flatter everyone at the table. It should have felt warm. Instead, it felt staged. We were in the renovated place just outside Nashville, the one I paid to get down to the studs 2 years ago. White oak floors, black-framed windows, long walnut table under a custom iron chandelier. Every inch of that room existed because I built it, and yet, sitting at the head of that table, I felt like a guest in my own life. Ryan Brooks sat 3 seats down from Lily, loose and comfortable, one arm draped over the back of his chair like he belonged there. My business partner. My friend, if I wanted to use a word that meant nothing now. He had on a navy blazer with no tie, expensive watch half hidden under the cuff, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. Lily kept finding reasons to touch him. A hand on his shoulder when she poured the wine, her fingers brushing his wrist when she passed the bread basket, a laugh that came too quickly, too softly every time he spoke. It wasn't subtle. That was the first thing that made it ugly. They weren't trying to hide anything. They were enjoying it. Across from me, Denise stopped cutting her chicken halfway through one of Lily's little performances. Mark stared into his glass like bourbon might save him from having to look up. Nobody said a word. Nobody needed to. The silence had shaped by then. Ryan leaned toward Lily and said something under his breath. She smiled without even looking at me. Say it louder. He chuckled, then lifted his glass. I said, Ethan's always been good at building things. Guess he just doesn't always know what's happening inside them. A couple people shifted in their seats. Someone gave a nervous laugh and immediately regretted it. I set my fork down carefully beside my plate. Lily finally turned to me, one brow raised, red lipstick still fresh against the rim of her glass. Oh, don't do that face, she said. We're having dinner, not a funeral. The room went still. I looked at her, really looked at her. Silk cream blouse, gold hoops, that cool, amused expression she wore when she thought she had all the power. Then I looked at Ryan, who wouldn't meet my eyes now that the line had landed. You embarrassed? Lily asked. I said nothing. That seemed to irritate her more than anger would have. She leaned back in her chair and crossed one leg over the other. Then leave, Ethan. Honestly, if you don't like the atmosphere, you're free to go. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And in that long, quiet second, with the chandelier glowing over the table and the winter dark pressing against the windows, something inside me went completely cold. I didn't answer her right away. I just picked up my napkin, folded it once, and placed it beside the plate like the meal had ended normally. The china clicked softly under the chandelier. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator motor kicked on. Small sounds, sharp sounds, the kind you notice when a room is holding its breath. Lily watched me with that same faint smile, expecting something louder. A raised voice, a slammed hand, maybe even gratitude for finally being told the truth. Ryan leaned back and tried to look relaxed, but I caught the change in him. His jaw had tightened. He knew he had crossed into something real now. I pushed my chair back and stood. Denise looked up at me first. There was pity in her face, and that bothered me more than Ryan did. Mark muttered, Ethan, like he wanted to stop what was happening without being brave enough to do it. But I wasn't looking at them. I looked at Lily. For years, I had learned the little shifts in her expression. I knew when she was lying, when she was bored, when she was performing. What I saw then was different. She thought she had already won. That was the part she would regret later. Not the affair, not the humiliation, not even the cruelty. It was the certainty, the carelessness of someone who believes there will be no consequences. I reached for the back of my chair, steady and unhurried. No, I said calmly. You're right. That seemed to throw her off for half a second. I usually am. Ryan let out a quiet laugh, but it died fast. I slipped my hand into the pocket of my coat, hanging on the nearby stand, and took out my keys. The leather was cold, outside the tall windows. The yard was black and still, the bare trees cutting into the night like ink lines. December had settled hard over Tennessee. You could feel it even through the glass. Then I looked at both of them and gave them the only thing they deserved. "Thank you," I said. Lily frowned. "For what?" "For being honest enough to stop pretending." That landed harder than anything else could have. Ryan sat forward. "Ethan, don't make this dramatic." I turned to him for the first time that night. "I'm not." Then I put on my jacket. Slow, smooth, no rush, no shaking hands, no speech. Lily stood up at that point, but not because she cared, because she was confused. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just leaving?" I zipped the jacket and looked at her over my shoulder. "Yes." The air hit me the second I opened the front door. Clean, bitter cold. It cut through the heat of the house and cleared everything out of my head. Gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked to the truck. Behind me, nobody called my name again. To anyone watching, it probably looked like a man walking away from his own table after being humiliated. It wasn't. It was the last time I would ever leave that house, as her husband. The engine turned over on the first try. I sat there for a second, hands resting lightly on the steering wheel, watching the house through the windshield, warm light spilling out windows, shadows moving inside, life continuing as if nothing had just ended. Then I shifted into drive and pulled away. No hesitation. The tires rolled slowly over gravel, then onto the long paved stretch that led down toward the main road. The gate slid open automatically as my headlights hit the sensor. I didn't look back again after that. The highway into downtown Nashville was nearly empty at that hour, a little past 9:30, cold enough that the air felt sharp even through the vents. Streetlights passed in steady intervals, each one cutting across the dashboard, then disappearing behind me. Most people would have gone home. I didn't. I had already decided where I was going weeks ago. That was the part nobody at that table understood. Tonight wasn't the beginning of anything. It was confirmation. A final piece falling exactly where I expected it to. About 20 minutes later, the skyline came into view. Glass towers lit against the dark, reflections shimmering in the river below. The city always looked calm from a distance. Controlled, like nothing messy ever happened inside it. I took the exit toward Broadway, then cut away from the noise before it got thick. Neon signs, music spilling out of open doors, people laughing too loud on the sidewalks. I passed all of it without slowing down. 3 more turns, and I pulled into a private parking structure attached to a rooftop lounge most people didn't even know existed. I parked on the second level, killed the engine, and checked the time. 9:58 p.m. Right on schedule. The elevator ride-up was quiet. Stainless steel walls, faint reflections staring back at me. Same expression I had worn at the table. Calm, flat, finished. When the doors opened, the air changed. Soft lighting, low conversation, the distant hum of the city below, floor-to-ceiling glass with a view that made everything down there look small and manageable. And she was already there, Ava Carter. She sat at a corner table near the edge, back straight, one hand resting lightly on a short glass. Dark blazer, no unnecessary movement, no distractions. The kind of presence that didn't ask for attention, but got anyway. She looked up the second I stepped out. No surprise, just recognition. I walked over, pulled out the chair across from her, and sat down. "You're exactly on time," she said. I said I would be. She studied my face for a moment, not emotionally, professionally, like she was confirming something had finally crossed a line. "It happened?" she asked. I loosened my jacket slightly and leaned back. "Yes." A small pause. Then she nodded once and slid a thin, dark folder across the table toward me. "Good," she said quietly. "Then we can stop preparing." I didn't open the folder immediately. Instead, I reached for the glass the waiter had already placed in front of me. Whiskey. Neat. The surface barely moved as I lifted it. No shake. No hesitation. I took a slow sip, letting the burn settle before I set it back down. Ava didn't rush me. She never did. "Take your time," she said, watching the city instead of me. But everything in there is time-sensitive. I placed my hand on the folder. It was heavier than it looked. Inside, The pages were organized with precision that told me this wasn't something put together overnight. Tabs, dates, clean margins, no unnecessary words. The first section was exactly what I expected. Timeline, Lily and Ryan, dates going back further than I wanted to admit. Late meetings that weren't meetings. Travel overlaps that weren't coincidences. Photos taken from a distance. Hotel entrances. Parking garages. Restaurants I recognized because I had paid for them. I flipped a page. Messages. Not everything. Just enough. Fragments that didn't need context. He has no idea. You worry too much. Just play along a little longer. My thumb paused on that last one. Play along. I almost smiled. Across the table, Ava spoke calmly. The affair started approximately 5 months ago. Became physical within 2 weeks. Consistent contact since then. I nodded once and kept going. The next section felt different. Denser. Contracts. At first glance, it looked like standard paperwork. Vendor agreements. Consulting retainers. Layered entities I had seen 100 times before in legitimate deals. But the numbers didn't align. I slowed down. Look at the signatures. Ava said. I did. Lily's name. Repeated. Clean. Digital. Authorized. My jaw tightened slightly, but I kept my face still. These were processed through your company. Ava continued. Approved under routine operational authority. No red flags if you weren't specifically looking. And if I was? I asked quietly. Her eyes met mine. Then it's very clear. I turned another page. Money flow diagrams. Clean arrows. Structured transfers. Accounts feeding into other accounts. Then disappearing into private holdings tied back, quietly, to Ryan. Not small amounts. Not mistakes. This was systematic. How much? I asked. Over the last 4 months? She said. Just under 2.8 million. The city noise seemed to fade for a second. Not because I was shocked, because it confirmed something deeper than betrayal. This wasn't just them against me. This was them using me. I closed the folder halfway, then opened it again, slower this time. Does she know? I asked. Ava shook her head. Not fully. She authorized documents she didn't read carefully. He structured it that way. She thinks she's helping him move things efficiently. She doesn't understand the liability she's attached herself to. I leaned back in chair, exhaling slowly. Lily laughing at that table. Ryan raising his glass. Play along. Ava's voice cut through the silence. There's more, she said. I looked at her. How much more? Her expression didn't change. Enough, she said, to decide how you want this to end. I closed the folder and rested my hand on top of it. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The city stretched out behind Ava in reflections, glass, light, distance. Everything looked clean from up here. Controlled, predictable. Down below, it never was. What happens if I do nothing? I asked. Ava didn't hesitate. Ryan continues. The amounts get larger. Eventually becomes visible. But by then the damage is hard to contain, and your exposure increases. And Lily? She becomes legally attached to decisions she doesn't understand, which means when it surfaces, she's not just involved emotionally. A pause. She's accountable. I nodded slowly. That made sense. Everything tonight made sense. I reached into my pocket and took out my phone, setting it face up on the table. The screen lit briefly, then dimmed again. No missed calls yet. No messages. That would change soon. Do you ever notice, I said quietly, how people get careless right before everything falls apart? Ava's gaze stayed steady. They confuse silence with safety. I unlocked the phone, opened the camera. The lighting was low but clean, the skyline stretching behind us like a backdrop designed for this exact moment. Ava didn't move when I angled the phone slightly. Are you sure? She asked. I glanced at her. Yes. One shot. Simple. Nothing dramatic. Just two people sitting across from each other, glasses on the table, the city behind them. No smiles. No signals. But anyone who understood the context would need them. I looked at the photo for a second. Then I posted it. No caption. No tags. No explanation. just a location automatically pinned at the top. The platform didn't matter. The audience did. People who knew me. People who knew Ryan. People who would recognize Ava Carter immediately. I set the phone back down and turned it screen down this time. Ava watched me for a moment. That was fast. It needed to be. The waiter passed by quietly, refreshing water glasses neither of us touched. Ryan will see it within minutes, she said. I know. And when he does, she continued, he'll understand exactly what it means. I leaned back slightly, looking out over the edge of the rooftop. Below, headlights moved like slow streams of light, order hiding chaos. That's the point, I said. A few seconds passed. Then my phone vibrated. Once. I didn't reach for it. Ava did glance at it this time, then back at me. You're not going to check? No. Another vibration. Longer this time. Then a third. Almost immediately after, I let them pile up, because the message wasn't in what they were saying. It was in how fast they were coming. Lily will be confused first, Ava said calmly. Then angry. I nodded. And Ryan, I finally reached for glass again, taking another slow sip before answering. Ryan already knows, I said. The phone buzzed again in my hand. This time, I turned it over just enough to see the name lighting up the screen. Ryan Brooks. Calling. I let it ring, not because I was unsure, because timing matters more than reaction. Ryan didn't call twice unless something had already gone wrong. He was controlled, calculated, the kind of man who built distance into every move, so he never looked desperate. The third call proved something had shifted. I declined it. Silence again for half a second. Then the phone lit up with messages. I didn't open them. Not yet. Across the table, Ava adjusted her glass slightly, watching me with that same measured focus. He's panicking, she said. Not a guess. A conclusion. I turned the phone toward me just enough to read the previews. Ryan, take that down. Another, call me. Now. Then, this isn't funny. I locked the screen again. That told me everything I needed. Interesting, I said quietly. Ava tilted her head slightly. What part? He didn't ask what it meant. I looked up at her. He already knows. That was the difference between guilt and fear. Guilt asks questions. Fear gives orders. My phone vibrated again. Different name this time. Lily. I let out a slow breath and finally answered that one. Not because I wanted to, because she wasn't the problem yet. I put it on speaker and set it on the table between us. What are you doing? She snapped immediately. No greeting. No hesitation. Her voice sharp, unstable in a way I hadn't heard before. Having a drink, I said. With her? She shot back. With Ava Carter? Are you serious right now? Ava didn't react. She just watched me. Yes, I said. A pause. Then louder. Are you trying to embarrass me? After the night? I almost laughed at that. After the night? I repeated calmly. You walked out like a child, Ethan, and now you're posting pictures like this is some kind of game? There it was. Confusion first. Anger right behind it. Exactly as Ava said. It's not a game, I said. Then what is it? She demanded. I leaned back slightly in my chair, eyes drifting past the phone to the city beyond. A decision. Silence. Not long. Just long enough for it to register that something wasn't following her script. Then her tone shifted. Not softer. Sharper. You need to take that down, she said. Now. Same language. Different person. That was when it clicked for her. You talked to her before, didn't you? Lily said slowly. This isn't random. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her breathing changed on the other end. You've been planning something, she said. Across the table. Ava finally spoke, her voice calm, controlled. Yes, she said. Lily froze. Who? She started, then stopped as recognition hit. Wait, are you? Yes, Ava repeated. That was the moment everything fractured, because Lily didn't just hear a voice. She understood what that voice meant, and before she could say anything else, my phone buzzed again in my hand. Not a call this time. A message from Ryan. I glanced down, and for the first time that night, He wasn't giving orders. He was asking, "Tell me you didn't bring her into this." I didn't answer Ryan. Not immediately. I let the message sit there on the screen, while Lily's breathing filled the space between us. Sharp, uneven. For the first time since I'd known her, she sounded like someone who didn't understand the room she was standing in. "What is this?" she asked again, quieter now. "Ethan, what did you do?" I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and set it back down exactly where it had been. "I stopped ignoring things," I said. "That doesn't mean anything," she snapped, trying to pull herself back into control. "You're being vague on purpose." Ava reached into her bag, without looking at Lily's voice coming through the phone. She pulled out another document, dinner this time, and placed it on the table beside the folder I had already closed. "I filed it 20 minutes ago," she said calmly. I glanced down. Header, legal formatting, clean, conflict notice, Ryan Brooks. My eyes moved across the lines once, then again. "And internally?" I asked, triggered automatically. Ava replied, "His accounts, his contracts, his active legal coverage. Everything tied to my firm is now under review." That landed exactly where it needed to. On the other end of the phone, Lily went silent. She didn't understand the details, but she understood the weight. "What does that mean?" she asked. I didn't answer her. I was reading. Dates, entities, cross-references that matched what I had just seen in the main file. Ryan hadn't just been careful. He had been dependent on systems, on people, on protections he assumed would always be there. Ava had just removed one of them. "Ethan," Lily said, sharper now, "answer me. What does that mean?" Before I could speak, another vibration cut through the table. Not a call, an email notification. Lily again, then another, and another. She must have seen it at the same time I did, because her voice changed instantly. "What is this?" Not anger, not confusion. Fear, real fear. "Why am I getting documents?" she said, her voice dropping. "Ethan, what did you send me?" "I didn't send you anything," I said. Ava leaned slightly forward, her tone still even. That would be automatic disclosure. I watched the realization form in Lily's silence. "What documents?" I asked, though I already knew. There was a long pause. Paper shifting on her end, breathing getting tighter. "Loan agreements," she said slowly. "What is this? Why is my name on?" She stopped, then quieter. "No." I closed my eyes for half a second. There it was, the part she never saw coming. "Ethan," she said, voice cracking just enough to break through her control. "Why am I listed as a guarantor?" I didn't answer right away. Because the truth wasn't complicated. It just needed to land fully. Because, I said calmly, "You signed what he put in front of you." Silence. Then, "That's not possible," she whispered. "I would never." "You did," Ava said, not unkind, just precise. "Digital authorization, multiple instances, consolidated into a private loan structure." "How much?" Lily asked. Ava didn't look at me this time. She answered directly. 7 figures. The sound that came from Lily wasn't a word. It was something smaller, something breaking. And for the first time that night, Ryan stopped being her ally and became the problem she couldn't escape. The line went quiet, not disconnected, just empty. I could hear Lily breathing, but she wasn't speaking anymore. The kind of silence that only happens when someone is trying to reread reality in real time and failing. "This has to be a mistake," she said finally. Slower now. Careful, like if she chose the right words, she could undo it. "Ryan handles those documents. I don't sign anything without." She stopped herself, because she knew that wasn't true. I didn't interrupt. I let her walk herself into it. "You signed everything he needed you to sign," I said. "You just didn't read it." "That's not fair," she snapped, but there was no strength behind it now. "You trusted him, too." "Yes," I said. "I did." That landed harder than blame ever could. Across the table, Ava slid one more page out from the folder and turned it toward me. I didn't need to read the title to know what it was. I had signed it months ago, quietly, without discussion. "Ethan," Lily's voice dropped again. Fix this. I almost smiled at that, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. I can't fix something you agreed to, I said. You always fix things, she said quickly. That's what you do. You handle problems. So handle this. I leaned forward slightly, resting my forearms on the table. That's exactly what I'm doing. Another pause, longer this time. Then she asked the question that mattered. What did you do? I tapped the paper in front of me once. 3 months ago, I said, when we refinanced a house, do you remember signing the updated postnuptial agreement? Silence. Then, no. Exactly. I let that sit for a second. You signed it in the middle of a call. I continued. You said you didn't want to go through all the pages again because it was the same as before. Her breathing got sharper. It wasn't. Ava didn't speak. She didn't need to. This part belonged to me. It included an infidelity clause, I said calmly, and an asset separation structure. What does that mean? Lily asked, her voice barely holding together. It means, I said, that everything tied to me, personally and professionally, was already separated before tonight. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the city noise seemed distant for a moment. That's not possible, she whispered. It is, I said. You wouldn't do that without telling me. I looked down at the glass in front of me, then back at the skyline. You stopped paying attention a long time ago, Lily. That was the truth she couldn't argue with. A rustling sound came through the phone. Papers, movement, something being dropped. My accounts, she said. Why can't I access? Because they're not shared anymore. Her voice cracked fully this time. Since when? Since before you decided to humiliate me at my own table. That was the first time emotion slipped into my voice. Not anger, just clarity. You planned this, she said. Yes. The word sat between us, clean and final. Across from me, Ava closed the folder slowly. And just so you understand the full position you're in, she added calmly, the clause you signed also affects liability distribution. Lily didn't respond. She didn't need to. She was already putting it together. The affair, the signatures, the loan, the separation. All of it, layered, connected, too late, and for the first time since I walked out of that house. I could hear it clearly. Not control, not arrogance. Collapse. By the time I got back to the truck, the narrative had already started shifting. I didn't check my phone until I was halfway down the parking structure. The engine idled low, headlights cutting across concrete pillars as I finally unlocked the screen. Dozens of notifications. Messages. Tags. Calls. Lily. Over and over. Ryan. People from the firm. People we both knew. I opened one thing first. Her post. Lily had moved fast. Faster than I expected. A photo from earlier that night. Our dining table. Perfectly lit. Everyone smiling like nothing was wrong. The caption was simple, controlled, designed to look effortless. Some people don't handle pressure well. Wishing everyone peace. I stared at it for a second. Clean, subtle, completely false. Then Ryan followed it up. A longer post, carefully worded, professional tone, just enough concern to sound credible. Difficult evening. When personal struggles start affecting business, tough decisions have to be made. Hoping Ethan gets the help he needs. I almost respected it. Almost. They were trying to do what people like them always do. Move first, shape the story, turn confusion into control, paint me unstable, make themselves reasonable. It would have worked if I hadn't already planned for it. My phone vibrated again. Ava, I answered this time. It's live, she said. I see it. Not that, she replied calmly. Refresh. I did. And there it was. Not a post. A release. Clean. Structured. Verified. No emotion. Just facts. Documents. Time-stamped records. Financial trails tied directly to Ryan. Layered accounts. Unauthorized transfers. Clear breakdowns anyone in our industry would understand immediately. And beneath that, a second file. Shorter. Simpler. Timeline. Lily and Ryan. Dates. Locations. Overlaps with company travel. No accusations. Just alignment. Truth without commentary. That's what made it lethal. I leaned back in the seat, watching the screen as a reaction started to come in. Not loud at first. Just quiet shifts. Comments disappearing from Ryan's post. People untagging themselves. Private messages replacing public support. Then it escalated. Fast. Someone recognized one of the shell entities. Another connected a contract ID. A third person reposted Ava's release with a single line. This is serious. That was the moment it turned. Ryan's post stopped getting traction. Then it started getting questions. Real ones. The kind you can't spin away. I scrolled once more. Lily's post was still up, but the comments had changed. Is this about Ryan? Why is your name on these documents? Can you explain this? No more sympathy. No more control. Just pressure. I set the phone down on the passenger seat and started driving. The city lights blurred past again, but this time they felt different. Behind me, their world was collapsing in real time. Reputation, money, control, all of it tied to perception. All of it cracking. My phone buzzed again. Lily. I didn't answer, because there was nothing left to discuss. They tried to control the story. I released the truth. And truth doesn't argue. It replaces everything. 3 weeks later, the ocean sounded different than I remembered. Slower, heavier, like it didn't care what had happened anywhere else. I stood on the edge of a quiet stretch of coastline in Oregon, hands in my jacket pockets, watching the waves break against dark rock. No noise behind me. No phones ringing. No names being called. Just distance. That was the point. By then, everything back in Nashville had finished collapsing. Ryan didn't last a week. Internal audits turned external. External turned legal. Positions disappear quickly when numbers don't make sense. And as never did once someone actually looked. The same people who used to shake his hand stopped returning his calls. Lily lasted longer. Not because she was stronger. Because she didn't understand how deep it went until it was already closing in on her. Her account stayed restricted. The loan didn't disappear. And the clause she signed without reading held exactly the way it was written. By the time she realized there was no way back to what we had, there was nothing left to go back to. I didn't watch most of it happen. I didn't need to. Ava handled what mattered. Clean, quiet, final. The only thing I did was send one message. Not a text, not a call, a video. I recorded it that morning, with the ocean behind me and the wind just loud enough to remind her where I was. I kept it simple. I got your messages. I said, my voice steady. All of them. I paused for a second, looking past the camera. You keep asking when this started, when I changed, when I decided to do all of this. Another pause, the kind that makes people lean in. It didn't start at dinner, I said. That was just the first time you stopped pretending in front of me. The waves hit harder behind me. You think this was a reaction, I continued. It wasn't. I shifted slightly, the camera catching more of the coastline. I noticed the changes months ago. The distance, the way you move your phone, the way you stopped paying attention to anything that wasn't convenient. I let that sit, so I started paying attention. No anger, no accusation, just facts. I separated everything before you gave me a reason to. Another pause, and I waited. That was the part she wouldn't understand. Not fully, because people like you don't stop, I said quietly. You escalate. The wind cut across the mic for a second, then settled. And when you do, I finished, you make it easy. I looked directly into the camera then. Not cold, not emotional, just finished. You thought you were playing me. I said, you weren't. A small breath. I just let you believe you were. I ended the recording there. No goodbye. No instructions. Nothing left open. I sent it. Then I turned the phone off and slipped it into my pocket. Out on the water, another wave rolled in, steady and inevitable. Some things don't need force. They just need time and the right moment to stop pretending.